So recently I made a video about how I won't make as many videos as I'm doing before. So I used to make like a video a day sometimes. I used to make 2 or 3 videos a week. So that's kind of a crazy upload schedule that I used to adopt. But right now, since I moved to that new school and heavier workload and don't have a lot of time to make these videos, so I thought let's present you guys with an alternative. Of course, the formal videos would definitely continue. That's not a worry that you should have. In fact, this afternoon we're working on a very interesting video in regards to Christopher Columbus and a very interesting story that happened to Christopher Columbus regarding to physics and how he messed up one of his tricks and how we can correct that trick. So that video, I'm not going to spoil it further. You can go and watch that once it is published. We're going to start working on that as soon as possible if we have the time. So anyways, in this little video, however, I want to talk about something that's not so related to science, because I am a firm believer that theoretical science is good. You can learn a bunch about chemistry, you can learn a bunch about math, you can learn a bunch about logic, you can learn about physics and astronomy, all that kind of stuff, which I am a big fan of. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here making science videos. But also there's a very, very important part of learning that's not really related to science whatsoever. And that part of learning is what I call personal development, right? How do you develop yourself, right? How do you focus better? And how do you develop the meta skills that you need to learn science more effectively? So that's also a major part of my passion, is to communicate some of these meta skills and to communicate some of these cool ideas and to communicate some of these more practical aspects of scientific inquiry rather than the abstract concepts that we all have floating around. And speaking of which, let's talk about a very important topic that I've been meaning to talk about for a long while. I've written some articles about this topic, but no one actually got around to watching or to read the articles on my website. So I thought video form would be a lot better, a lot more instant, and a lot more entertaining than the articles. So what I really want to talk about in this video is the problem of focus in the 21st century, and how do we develop focus in such a distracted economy. So recently I've read a book called Deep Work by Cal Newport. I've actually read this book once last year, but this year I've reread it again. Actually dug through it pretty quickly. Only took me about 3 days to read it again, this entire book. So which is Deep Work by Cal Newport, a fascinating read, very enlightening to get to know some of the ideas proposed in this book. So he basically argues that in the 21st century, all of us are distracted by the economy, because the modern economy that we live in right now in the 21st century has a heavy emphasis on instant gratification. All of the businesses around you, they are in the stage orange of the spiral dynamics model, which is a model that I'll be happy to share with you in the future. So basically, we're stuck in the spiral dynamics model orange, where each businesses, they have a heavy emphasis on economic growth and marketing and capitalism, and from which their marketing scheme is to get as much eyeballs as possible drawn to their businesses so they can make more revenue, they can make more money, they can capitalize their facilities better with all the attention that they're grabbing. So really the only way to grab attention is if you offer your audience instant gratification. That's why a lot of the most popular YouTube videos are funny. That's why the most popular YouTube videos are short. That's why a lot of the video games and a lot of the social media stuff, they're all delivered in very short and concise segments. They're not really stretched into hours like the MIT lectures or from some other YouTube channels out there. Their videos don't get as many views because to watch the video actually requires some attention and some focus. Whereas these little videos that get a lot of popularity, they don't stretch their video too long because they don't want to compromise on the instant gratification. So the major marketing scheme that we have in the 21st century is really instant gratification. You get a headache, you take a pill, that headache goes away. If you want to come back home to your couch, you go on your couch and you play video games. So that's the whole marketing scheme of the 21st century. Basically, in a nutshell, is to promise us instant gratification. You can see this within Facebook, within Twitter, within YouTube. So any other social media platforms out there, I'm not doing a rant, but instant gratification definitely is their major marketing scheme. Without this scheme, they would literally fall apart. No one would actually visit those websites. So definitely, yes, instant gratification, this marketing scheme is great for businesses. They're making millions, billions of revenue each year. They're generating a lot of profits for themselves, but it is very damaging to us as users. Because if you're constantly caught in the trap of instant gratification, if you constantly switch your attention to different sources to acquire these gratifications, if you turn to YouTube and next second you turn to Facebook, and next second from Facebook you turn back to YouTube and you go back to Twitter, if you're constantly switching back and forth to find these pleasure points, what's going to happen is that your mind's going to become very scattered, your mind's not going to focus whatsoever, and your mind becomes a mush that it's literally impossible sometimes to focus and to do a task strategically. That's why with a lot of my peers, they couldn't even read a book cover to cover effectively. They couldn't even, do a test. They couldn't even focus on their homework. They couldn't even perform some of the most simple tasks. But what I'm observing is that even people in the 21st century, they don't even have the focus to watch an hour-long video. So that's a major harm to our psychological beings, and that's a major harm to the entire economy as a whole. So how would you expect people from that mentality to come up with something exceptional that's going to transform the entire economy, that's going to transform the entire scientific thinking? So speaking of which, let me present you with an alternative to this distracted mindset, because it is definitely harmful to our brain. This orange stage of marketing, this orange stage of instant gratification definitely is problematic both to us and to the entire economy as a whole. So have you ever wondered why back in the days scientists were a lot more successful? Back in the days scientists were able to produce a lot of work that are exceptional, that are, hard to replicate, and that are hard to, win them over on it. So my main thesis is that the reason why scientists back in the day are so much more successful than the scientists right now is purely because they have adopted a way of working that are very different from the way that we work in the 21st century. Take a look at people like Einstein, like J.K. Rowling, like Isaac Newton. They worked in seclusion, they worked in total isolation, and they did not have many distractions lying around as we do right now. We turn on the phone, we have Facebook notification. We turn on the computer, a new YouTube video is out. We turn on anything basically electronic. There definitely will be some stuff popping up right in your face that's going to try to grab your attention. Einstein and Isaac Newton, they didn't have stuff like that. So they can concentrate their mind on their work strategically. That's why they've generated all of their research. All of their research are revolutionary, and of course they are at times very, very, very challenging to come up with a distracted mind. So my claim here is that back in the days, people did not have as many distractions than we have today. That's why they can focus better, and with better focus comes better results. So after talking about the grand marketing scheme and talking about some exceptional people throughout history, let's talk about the 3 practical benefits of developing your focus and working deeply on one task. The first benefit of deep work is that deep work aids rapid learning. So what's going to happen is that a lot of people, a lot of students, especially at my age, we're all in high school, we're always doing well academically, we're trying to win on the top, to win the rat race, so to speak. We are always trying to strive for the best score and strive for the best grade, and what's going to happen is that a lot of learning is involved. So definitely deep work definitely has a major benefit when it comes down to rapid learning, when it comes down to facilitating new ideas into your brain. Because your neural pathways, they're kind of like different networks of thoughts, right? If you're constantly distracted all the time, one signal will be split up into multiple channels from left, right. It's always scattered, it's always unfocused, and it's always all over the place, where it gets to a point where you can no longer learn effectively. So the idea of deep work is that you isolate all of your focus onto one specific neural pathway, and you develop that over and over and over again until that specific pathway facilitates, until that specific pathway strengthens and it ossifies and it cements in your brain as permanent knowledge. Whereas if you're distracted all the time, you're always firing all these neural signals into a million different directions without really narrowing down onto one path. So you don't really build knowledge in that way. You can't really facilitate anything new if you're constantly checking Facebook when you're doing homework, if you're constantly distracted by YouTube when you're trying to do an essay. So the ideal situation is that you narrow down to one specific neural pathway and you focus on that one pathway until it cements, until it ossifies, until it stays in your brain for good. So deep work suggests that you cut out every distractions when you are doing your homework or when you're trying to learn a new subject or a new topic. So you can then narrow down your neural focus into one specific pathway to strengthen that. Instead of strengthening all these other pathways when you're distracted, you strengthen one specific pathway until that ossifies and until that cements. So that's the first benefit of deep work, is that it really helps you to rapidly learn stuff more quickly because you're narrowing down all your focus onto one specific one of your neurons. And the second benefit, which is one of the major benefits of deep work, is that deep work aids happiness. So a lot of people in the 21st century are depressed. Because why? Because we're constantly distracted and our brains are not wired for distractions. We're always checking Facebook and YouTube. We're always checking all these websites, reading blogs. The mind is always scattered all over the place. And to be honest, that doesn't really feel good to the human brain. It doesn't really make you feel fulfilled. You always feel a sense of hollowness within you. It's like a hole that you couldn't quite fill if you're constantly engaged in distracting behaviors. So my claim here is that by narrowing down your focus, by focusing more, by being more deliberate with your time, maybe, read a book or two, or maybe, spend a little bit more time watching a longer video, or maybe spend some time doing a mindfulness meditation session. So these acts of building up your focus is going to make you happier and more fulfilled. Have you ever experienced those flow sessions where you get really into one thing and after that flow session of work, you feel really good, you feel really energetic, you feel really successful, productive, and pumped? So that's what I'm kind of talking about. Focus does bring you more happiness and fulfillment in the grand scheme of life. After reading a book cover to cover, you feel a sense of satisfaction, a sense of internal fulfillment rather than external distracting fulfillment that mainstream culture is promising you. And the last benefit of deep work is really work-life balance. You're like, what? Wouldn't I just turn into a workaholic if I keep doing deep work all of a sudden? So the reason why deep work promises work-life balance is because it really shortens your time span on doing your homework. It really shortens the block of your work required, and it really shortens your time when you're trying to accomplish any tasks that you're trying to accomplish. So for example, you've set it out an intention to commit 4 hours to your homework on a Saturday morning because you haven't done anything for the rest of the week. You haven't done anything on a prior week either. So you are planning on doing every revision for every test. You're planning on doing every essay for every subject on Saturday. So you've committed 4 hours to that specific block. So what's going to happen is that you're going to waste 4 hours if you engage in shallow work, which is distracting work. If you check your phone when you're doing work, if you check this and go on Facebook and go on YouTube when you're doing your work, you're actually wasting a lot of time because shallow work does not tend to produce solid results. Whereas deep work, if you just commit 1 hour of deep work every Saturday morning, what's going to happen is that you're going to get more done with deep work than if you spend a long stretch of time with shallow work. This all kind of weights out. If you have intense focus, it's going to turn it into kind of a shorter time span where you get the same amount of work done in shorter time. So some successful people, they deliberately shorten their time, right? They deliberately cut time for their work just because they want to focus more deeply. They want to get more done in less time. So that's where deep work comes in. If you're totally focused, if you're totally distraction free, you can actually get so much more done in shorter span of time where you can left so much more free time for yourself doing whatever you want to do. Get distracted, watch TV, all that free time is yours. But when you're working, be sure to do deep work so you can shorten the amount of time that you work, compress everything to highly productive 1 hour so you can get more done than you can ever dream of, and then you can spend the rest of your time doing whatever you like, hang out with friends and going out to movies and hang out with whoever you like and go eat whatever you like. I mean, in this video we've covered quite a lot and it's got quite a long video, and if you can actually stick to the to the end of this video, congratulations, you've already accomplished your first work towards developing your focus, which is watching a longer video and watching kind of a longer span of video so you can become a better version of a focuser. So definitely at the end of the video, you definitely want to read this book cover to cover. Each argument in there is just golden, and each techniques within this book that builds up your focus is just exquisite, and it's just a beautifully written book. Definitely recommend you to read this book. I've read it twice. You can definitely benefit from it from just reading it once. Highly recommended. And with that being said, I'll see you in the next video. And this is Robin from the Quirky Inquiry, signing off.